So, Caleb, is it Engstrom?
Yeah, Engstrom.
Okay, great. How would you describe what you like your occupation or what you currently do now?
I am a small business owner. I run the way I pay for this space and I pay my bills is fabrication for designers, architects, or galleries. I work with a number of galleries that'll come to me and say, hey, we need 10 pedestals for this exhibition, or we need, this or that. So I've got repeat clients that I work with, and then architects and designers that are repeat, that'll be commercial retail jobs or home residential built-ins. So that's really my business. But then also, so that's I've separated them out into this Rest Fabrication, and then Rest Energy is the side of my work that is furniture-based design, conceptual kind of making, and that's sort of been what I've launched in the past year, and it's maybe more forward-facing, where the fabrication work is a little bit more behind the scenes. And yeah, it's the fabrication is the day job that pays the bills. So exactly. You can pursue the creative work. Okay. Cool. But that day job too is related to the to the designs that I make, and I'm making and I'm dealing with materials, so they inform each other and are related. And even some of the people that I work with through the fabrication work are also in my community of designers. Cool. So there's crossover too, which is nice.
Cool. Okay, so we've established the now. Now we're going to jump back in time.
Yeah.
When and where were you born?
I was born in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina, 1984. I have two siblings, one of which was born in North Carolina, the other was born in Illinois. My parents originally are from Iowa. They both moved to North Carolina and started this new life there, and so it was always kind of Iowa is home, even when we were in North Carolina. And then when I was 9 years old, my mom moved back to the same small town of 6,000 people that she grew up in, that my grandparents were at. So I lived in a small town from 9 to 18.
In Iowa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your upbringing like? Were your parents artistic, craftspeople?
I would say that in an untraditional sense, they were. My dad was always and my mom really maybe was the one instigating these projects, but there was always projects going on. I helped my dad build they were very home projects, building a deck or tiling the kitchen or tearing off all the wallpaper in the house, and these kinds of always having some kind of project and jumping into things that you don't necessarily know how to do. And figuring them out, and I was always interested in helping too. But I wouldn't say we didn't go to the art museum. There was an art museum. I didn't live a cultured life in rural Iowa.
But there sounds like there was a DIY mentality. Yeah, for sure. There was a do stuff yourself.
Yeah, and through my schooling too, in high school, I took welding class. I took car mechanics. I took woodworking courses. So it was very technical, kind of hands-on. A lot of my classmates were farmers that they could directly apply this to their everyday, and I was interested in that sort of learning through my hands, even from that. But I didn't take art classes. I didn't even take an art class in high school, but maybe I'm getting too far. But then that was what I was interested in later in college, but it just made sense. But my upbringing, I didn't do, it wasn't a part of the conversation, or I didn't even know. I don't think I could name one artist when I was.
Okay. So pre-high school, what were you were you good at school?
Yeah, I was pretty good at school. I didn't really I liked, I don't know. I liked creative, this sounds whatever, but I liked creative projects, collaboration, thinking, imagining, these kinds of maybe I liked social studies and kind of, these areas that were a bit more open-ended and less it's not a big math fan. It's not a big.
Okay, so I see what you mean.
Even though much of I use math all the time now, it's it's also it's funny how that
Yeah. Funny how that goes.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was in like, I don't know, I was in this thing called like Talented and Gifted, you know, that like we went and did these like competitions that were like part theater, part like, you know, like we'd have to like make this car that could go on a obstacle course and like pick up, but then there was like a soundtrack and there was like music that, you know, like these kinds of like things I really liked.
That sounds like art.
It was like definitely art.
Yeah.
At the time, but I didn't know. I was just like, oh, this is this thing I get to go do once a week with a few of my friends.
Did you like it?
And then on the weekends we got to go do these like competitions. I loved it.
Cool. Okay.
But I was into like music, and my junior year of high school I joined the choir, even though I had not ever like sung like that, but I loved it so much that I was singing. I like loved choral music and singing, and I was in like High School Musical and stuff.
Nice. That's crazy.
You know, I was like, but I also was a wrestler. That was like my sport.
Oh wow,
and
you're
I
like
still
full
love
of
wrestling.
contradiction.
Yeah, so
which I think is an interesting point, because we'll come back to this. We'll tease it now, but rest energy, wet wool. Like I think there's I'm seeing themes of contradiction, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that I know that is a big part. Like you said, we'll talk about it later, but that's a big part of like what I'm attracted to and interested in. I find that like when there's those tensions, like that's somewhere where I want to be, because I feel like it's like there's some kind of weird space that is trying to define itself when you have like these two opposites and they're working together, and I like that.
Yeah.
Whether it be just linguistic, like just, you know, syntax, you know, like just words, you know, or if it's like maybe those words and things that then manifest in objects, and then maybe it's actually the life that you're living. Like I think about that as like I'm a parent too, and I think about like, you know, maybe I'm rambling. Here's where I'm rambling.
That's okay.
We're
here to ramble.
And I'm going off on these tangents, but like
that's okay.
Like living a life as a parent, but also living this life of like, you know, artist, and those worlds are sometimes they feel like I'm like switching and different people, and they're kind of colliding and at opposition, but like it actually has benefited me in a way that like maybe is unexpected for myself in terms of just like time management and like what's important to me, and like really kind of like setting my goals and like being intentional about what I do. Okay. Which I think feeds from being a parent, and then it comes from being a parent for me, and then it like actually benefits my art practice and business.
Interesting. I think we'll probably pick that back up. Yeah. When we get a little further down the story. Yeah. So, growing up, DIY mentality at home. Yeah. You were involved. Were you expected to be involved, or did you want to be involved?
Involved with
the DIY around the house.
Oh, I was just drawn to it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I loved like being an assistant and like doing, you know, making things and.
Okay. And you liked the classes that were, you liked the car mechanics and like like working with your hands maybe?
Yeah. Okay. I welded a grill guard for I had a Jeep when I was 15. I bought, so I got a loan out for like $2,000. Okay. And bought a 1979 CJ5 Jeep, and I welded a grill guard for it as my final project. Cool.
Do you have any photos of that?
Probably not. Okay. Like maybe. That's like 2002. Okay. It's like nobody was taking photos in 2002.
That's quite a while ago, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh.
It wasn't like you could, I mean, was there even?
There wasn't digital, really. I don't think. Was there?
I don't actually know. I don't know when digital cameras became a thing, but I'm trying to think, like, when did like cell phone cameras become a thing?
Yeah. And I was late to the cell phone game. I was like 2000, I think, because I remember I went to college, and then
the first iPhone was like 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, even my phone was a flip phone for like quite a while, and then 2007. Because I think about too, like my kid. And this is maybe too much, but my kids, like my youngest was born in 2000, or my oldest was born in 2011, and like I remember I had one of those like video cameras that was called like the Flip. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
So we have like a few videos of her. Yeah. And like that's about it, because I didn't even have like a camera on my phone. But now we have a 2-year-old, and I have like 3 billion photos of her.
So crazy.
Okay, and that's only like 10 years.
So in high school, how long did you live in Iowa?
So from fourth grade, I started there into high school, to my senior year.
So throughout high school, is this when you're doing the classes that are a lot of things with your hands?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, like I was saying, I was on the wrestling team. I love
wrestling, choir, High School Musical.
Yes.
Plus mechanics.
Yeah.
What an odd combination of things. I love it.
Yeah, it was cool. I feel like I think I always had a real like love for music and listening to music and playing and singing, and that was like kind of through high school. At the end of my high school career, I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be like somehow involved with music. I'm gonna be on the recording side. I did a lot of home recording, like DIY, figuring it out, like how can I record, myself these songs, whatever.
And you just let me struggle with setting up these microphones?
I mean, I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
But that kind of feeds into what I do. I mean, like, I know what I'm doing when it comes to like fabrication work, or at least I make sure I know what I'm doing before I commit to a job. But like with the work that I make, there's a kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing to it. And that helps me like make something better, I think.
Yeah.
So I was, making music, recording music, and I was like graduating from high school. And
were you playing you were recording your own music? Like that you wrote?
Yeah.
Okay.
On like this like crappy Tascam, you put it directly on like a cassette tape. It had like 4 inputs, and I would like borrow people's equipment and buy and sell stuff all the time, little things.
Musical instruments?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
what did you play?
I played guitar. That was like, I played the bass. Bass was really my like instrument. When I played in bands, I always played the bass.
What did you like about the bass? Why was it your instrument?
I think I was kind of like defaulted to the bass because I don't know if this is the case with a lot of people, but I feel like nobody wants to play the bass. Everybody wants to play guitar.
Yeah.
Or like
be
up front,
guy.
Or drums, like you want to be the drummer.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll be the bass. That's cool. Like nobody wants to be the bass. I'll be the bass.
Okay.
That's cool.
There's that contradiction theme again. Yeah. Going against the grain. Like, fuck yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So I got a purple bass, an Ibanez that came with a little baby
amp,
nice. Little package.
Yeah.
And then that was my instrument. I took lessons from this guy, Scott Dalzell. Shout out
Scott Dalzell. So that was high school. You were doing a lot of things. It sounds like you were doing.
Yeah.
You were doing your
I was
classes.
pretty busy.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of things. Okay.
Yeah.
But you thought you were like, my next step after high school is a career in something with music.
Yeah, I thought music. I didn't quite know like what. Speaking of Scott, he told me about this small college in Illinois, Southern Illinois, that was like a little liberal arts school that had like a recording studio on campus, and like while you couldn't like major in music production or whatever, but they had the facilities for it. And a lot of people go there and like would like, make music there. So I was like, oh, that sounds great. And it's, 5 hours away. It's far enough away that I can like get away, but not be too far if I need to come back. So I went and did that for a year, but I was like a vocal performance major because I had like this choir experience, and I like also really loved like, choral music and like that whole, I didn't know really too much about that world, but like, and that's what I discovered when I was a major. I was like, oh, this is not what I want to do. This is like math class here. I'm like in over my head a little bit in terms of like music theory and sight singing, and I have to take piano lessons, and I was like, oh.
What kind of singing?
Vocal performance was the major, so it was like really you were learning to probably go to graduate school for studying music, or maybe be a music teacher, or it was
got it.
It was teaching you like the foundations of like being a musician basically, but through whatever instrument choice, and my instrument was my voice.
Your voice. Whoa.
So you'd have like a sight singing class where you'd learn to like read and sing sheet music without like accompaniment, or like they made they asked you to take piano lessons, and I'd never played the piano, and that was pretty tough for me. And I was like, this is a lot of work for something that I'm not even really here for. I'm here to like mess around in the recording studios. Like, why am I doing this to like so that I can do this. So I was like, I'll do something else that I enjoy and I can still do this. So I switched my major, or I just started taking art classes. I was like pretty intent on actually dropping out. I was like pretty sure, I was like, all right, after this year I'm going to drop out of school. Like,
what year of school is this for you?
After my freshman year.
Okay, so that was pretty quick. You're like, this is not my thing.
This is not,
okay, cool.
And also this school had like, I'm not going to get it.
We can go there. We got nothing but time.
It's whatever.
These cars got 10.5 hours on them. Hey, it's Cameron. I don't want to place spammy ads all over the Future Artifacts site. So I have created a product that will provide you value while allowing me to generate revenue for the Future Artifacts brand. I'm calling it the Creator Tools Database. Over the years, I've bookmarked thousands of useful websites, softwares, apps, creative assets, and I am going through those bookmarks one by one and putting the best ones into this database. What you're seeing here is the dashboard. Lucky for you, you get these 4 items for free, but there'll be many, many more in this database. There's about 30 items so far, but I'll be adding more each week, including the app that I used to make this nice little video in basically just the time it took me to speak these words. I've also designed these filters to make it easier to find things. These filters will grow with the database, but you can search by category, by specific creative asset types, for use with certain softwares. You get it. Okay, bye.
There's other things.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. And so, but the friends that I had made in that school were like all art majors, all having fun in their classes, and I was like, what am I doing?
Like capital A art, like painting, sculpture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was able to switch my classes, and I took like a painting class and a drawing class, and I really loved it, mostly because I was able to kind of like breathe again in a setting like that. I felt like I could like, there wasn't, I don't know, I didn't have to like, it was easy, and I could like kind of like let go a little bit, and it felt like stress was relieved, and I was like, okay, this is cool. But
did it come easy to you? Like, were your first creations? So, like, for example, I loved my art classes in high school. I fucking loved them, but I was always terrible. I'm a little bit colorblind, so my colors would always be off. My art teacher was
colorblind too.
Okay, cool, nice. Someone else. So my art teacher, she was so nice, but she was forgetful, and she would forget that I was colorblind, and she'd be like, "What are you doing?" And then I'd be like, "Sorry," and then she'd be like, "Oh yeah." But I loved the classes, but my output was always awful.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I feel like I had tried every kind of like medium, and I was like, this is fucking terrible, but I like these classes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna get a camera.
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, here we go. Now we're.
See, I think what's interesting what you said is like my output was terrible. I think that like what I was drawn to is that it wasn't output focused. It was process focused. These classes, it was more about like I remember one assignment that was like, and I loved it, and I still remember it. It was like, all right, the assignment was for everyone to make a bad drawing.
To make a bad drawing.
Yeah,
okay.
and we were all, but you had to spend like 2 entire classes, which was like 4 hours on it.
Wow.
So you really were forced to like think about like what kind of output, like what is a bad drawing? Like how can I fail at this? Like what is this, So it kind of pushed me to like, just lean in, like let go, like don't worry about like what like you do necessarily, but like that focus and that meditation or that like that sort of.
They call that a practice in the yoga world.
Yeah, that flow that you can like go into. That's the point. Like that's so like that for me clicked, and I was like, yes, and this is what that feeling that I get when I'm, experimenting or when I was in that, talented and gifted class that was in this flow place or, leaning into this spot of like imagining and kind of like going for it. And so that's where I was like, okay, this clicks. This is what I want to do. But I was also writing music and doing that while in school, and I was like, this is what I'd rather do actually. So I'm not gonna, I'm spending all this money at this private school and like building up debt for what, like to be an art major, like what am I doing? So I dropped out of school
So you were like, at that point, you were like, I'm not. The music was still a thing, but you were like, that's not my future. My future is art.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like, I don't necessarily need to continue to spend money to do this.
Yeah.
I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like, all right. So I stopped going to school.
At what year was that? What time?
Like 2006.
Okay.
Something like that.
So was that,
2007.
what year of school for you?
I think I did a year and a half.
Okay, so that was like mid sophomore year then?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
And that was pretty fast. I mean, you got lucky you didn't blow a bunch of money on school.
Yeah, and like the summer before, and this is something else too, is like the summer before school, my mom was like, you should really like work a bunch this summer so you don't have to take out as much loan. So, you know, blah, 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 blah. So like, I always like had a job. I was always working, making money. Like, you know, my mom worked at this pillow and comforter factory. She was in the office. She like did like scheduling or something. And there was jobs in that summer, like on the floor, like loading up trucks with giant boxes, filling, you know, tractor trailers with pillows. Yeah. So like for the summer 9 to 5, I was doing that with like a dolly, like moving things and setting them in trucks. Yeah. And then on the weekend, I worked it was like a Denny's, but it was called Perkins. I don't know.
My God, I know Perkins.
Are you familiar with Perkins?
I grew up in Ohio, so I have a little bit of this kind of like Midwest. Yeah. I have some of those things. Wow, I haven't heard that name in so long.
I know, I couldn't remember. I was like, it's like
Perkins. Holy cow.
Perkins. But it has...
We have one of those in my mall, which has now closed. But
they're 24/7.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I would work the third shift on the weekends, in addition to that thing, and so it was kind of
you were hustling.
I was hustling, so I like worked a lot, but it was easy. It was just mostly like showing up because you'd get like the tail end of like drunk crowd that would come in, like all.
The third shift is what time?
It was like 11 to 7 or something like that, and I'd do it like Friday and Saturday. Okay. Friday would kind of suck because it would be like working all day and then going home and then
sleep for a few hours and then get back up.
Yeah, but I knew when I knew it was like a limited summer, like I'm only doing this and I'm counting down the days. It's like
you could commit to it. Yeah.
If this means like I can put an extra like $5,000 down on school, then you know.
Yeah. Do you remember what your tuition was for private school?
I want to say it was like $30,000 a year or something like that.
That's pretty expensive.
I don't know, 27. I can't remember.
Yeah, but I went out of state and mine was like in the 40s, I think. So,
yeah,
but that was more recent.
I was gonna say even between like 2000, I graduated high school in 2003. So even between like 2004 and those early 2000s to like 2015, like in the 10-year span there, I think prices. I don't know if they're still climbing like at that
I'm
consistent
sure
rate.
Or if this just
they've
keeps
kind
going
of
up.
calmed a little.
That's a whole other topic.
I know. I have kids. So, I'm like,
oh shit,
3 kids.
Yeah, holy cow. 3 kids. Holy cow. Okay, so mid-sophomore year, you're like, all right, this music thing is cool, but it's not my future. I'm paying a lot of money at this college, but I can do what I actually think is my future, which is art. Yeah. So I'm going to drop out. Yeah. What did your parents think of that? What did you tell them?
I told them. I think that they were understanding, and I also kind of like was like, hey, because what I was dropping out for was to go play and tour and play music. So like, it was, I had like been playing like in the area. St. Louis was close. I was playing St. Louis. I was playing Chicago. I was like this was like in MySpace heyday. I don't know if you remember MySpace.
Oh yeah, I do.
That was And when it was like very communal, and you were like you could reach out to other people or bands and people, you know, set up house shows through MySpace, and like I was really kind of trying to network and hustle on the internet with my music and recording music. And I made an album, and there was this like small record label in Texas that was like, we want to help you release it. We'll give you like $3,000 to make a press of like 500 of your CDs, and you know, help you try to get you. Yeah. I know, dude. Which was like, I felt like I made it. You know, that was like a step where I was like, okay,
now ticket.
So I was like, all right, this makes sense. Even if I'm playing like crappy shows, I'll have like 3 or 4 that I know will like. There's a guarantee, so at least like my expenses will be paid for.
So you're touring. Are you in a band?
Yeah, so it was just my own.
Playing bass?
Yeah, no, it was just myself playing solo, usually guitar, sometimes like piano.
You're touring solo?
Yeah.
Just you on stage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I would have a friend, like a couple, for like 3 or 4 dates, like my friend Scott came along and like played his like steel guitar and like a snare drum. Like he was very like loose and not, yeah.
It sounds like, so you were solo.
Yeah.
I don't want to put things on you, but it almost sounds like a little more like performance art than it was like maybe going to see a concert.
Yeah, I mean, I think gradually even the music I was making did become more performative in that way, where like I would do like sometimes in my songs, the music I was playing was like very like chill, quiet music, and I would do like, I was really interested in kind of these like moments of attention or quietness too, where I'd like pause in between songs or like end a song but not like signal that like, and now it's like, if I were to watch back videos of that, my like 20-year-old self, I'd be like, oh my God, you think you're so like so creative and cool here.
Well, that's all
it
of
would
us,
be
though.
cringy, but
I've done many of those things and I'm like, yikes.
But I was like, I mean, the music, I can still listen to it. It's not like horrible.
Is it like ambient? Like, did you sing too?
Yeah.
You sing too? Okay.
Yeah. I'll send you some tracks.
Okay.
But yeah, so I would like do these things where I'd like play and like pause, but like not look up, and like it would be awkwardly quiet for like 30 seconds. And then, like, or I'd like be singing and like move away from the microphone and sing over here to kind of like play. I don't know. I was always trying to do something maybe that felt like a little bit like, what, like what, where does this go? Can I do something that feels a little different here?
Okay.
But yeah, so I toured, I played music.
How long did you tour for?
I played hardcore that spring, like I did like probably 100 shows plus.
Wow.
A lot of them were like, house shows or like, for like 10 people or whatever. But I had some cool shows where it's able to open up for like bigger artists and like Colin Hay. Do you know the band Men at Work?
I do, yeah.
So I opened up for him once. What's his Justin Vernon, the Bon Iver, whatever his name.
Okay, I've heard the Bon Iver name, but I don't know the
indie guy. And then like who else? Other cool bands like, I don't know.
Were you enjoying this period of your life? Like you were
I loved
money?
it. Yeah, I loved like traveling, exploring, being in my car, like seeing the country. Like,
and you were just by yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't have bandmates. You were just on your own in your car with your gear.
Yeah, and it was like, that was exciting and fun. And, I didn't have really any like responsibility in terms of like, other people or I could make my own decisions. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like my school loans hadn't come in yet, so I was like
in
this little grace period of
it's a great spot to be in.
I think I used some of those loans to like help pay for some of that like CD. Like I was like very like whatever, just figure it out. I just want to go and play music.
Yeah.
And it was fun, but yeah, I wasn't really making any money. So.
And how old were you in this period of time? So this is like right after you dropped out of college then?
Yeah, so I was like 20, something like that.
Pretty young.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember because we're in LA, I'll give you like one little funny story. I played in Los Angeles and I played in the basement of this venue. I don't even know the name of it. It's like a known venue, but it's like just down the road from the Chinese Theater. It's like upstairs, like the White Stripes were playing.
Okay.
And downstairs was like this like basement space that like there was like 10 people down there or whatever for my show. But I just remember that day was the opening of Talladega Nights.
Oh, okay.
So Will Ferrell was like there. And
was that your show?
Yeah. No, he was like driving a race car down, what is that, Sunset?
Yeah.
And they had like, because I'd never been to LA, and I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. There's like E-entertainment and like,
Yeah, there's like it was like a PR thing basically. Yeah.
They had like a red carpet like thing at the.
Okay.
But
so like going to do shows solo, I mean, Were you scared at all? Like, to me, I would be fucking terrified. I would not like being on stage. But how did you feel going on, showing up to a venue and just being by yourself, walking up on the stage?
I liked meeting people. I liked the time maybe off stage.
Like the time off stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of tell even in this interview, I'm like a little bit nervous, energy, a little bit weird, like with it. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I think that there's a performance right now that I am even as much as I want to try to not just be comfortable, but I'm okay to feel like that. You know what I mean? Like I think that's like playing music was that same kind of thing where it's like, I don't think I was like super smooth as a performer, but I think that I'm okay with that like uncomfortable kind of nervous energy that like comes out through performance.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm hungry for that or if it's just something that I'm happy to
bear.
Yeah.
To tolerate.
And I enjoy, in a way enjoy it, but also don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times it's like the stuff that makes you uncomfortable is usually the stuff that's good for you. It's if you want to change, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. You want to push your boundaries, your limits, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally.
So I think it's maybe it's the feeling of not being comfortable, but knowing that it's good for you. Yeah, it helps.
And I think in reflection is when you post are able to even just agreeing, like I've been saying, agreeing to have this conversation and go talk about myself and talk about my work and all that is uncomfortable. And I don't love right now doing it, but I do because I know that it does kind of break open something. It does kind of help me
it's almost
reflect.
Therapeutic or a way to process
and
it.
Understand what you're doing to take a second to stop, So that's,
Okay, cool. So you're dropped out of college, you start, this is interesting to me because you said you were okay, art's going to be my thing. Yeah. But then you start doing music, you start touring as a musician.
Yeah.
What was the decision there?
I think the art is going to be my thing as much as it was if I'm going to be in college, if I'm going to be in school, this is what I'm going to be doing. But this is kind of temporary until my music starts to take off. I wasn't I'm going to be an artist.
Okay.
I mean, a visual artist in that sense. But, if I was going to be in school, that's what I was going to do.
Okay. So you quit, you start touring.
Yeah.
How long were you touring for?
So I did that spring really hard. And then that summer, I needed money because I'd maybe made enough money to pay for gas. And that was about it, Okay. So I was all right, I gotta boost back up.
Yeah.
So I went home and I got a job that summer at a factory pouring aluminum. So they have these staffing offices where you can go in and get a temporary factory job. So they placed me at this place that made tractor parts. So that summer I poured aluminum into this little thing and whatever all day long, and then got moved to this other spot where you press a button and it just cuts off all the flashing on the part. Yeah. But anyways, so I did that and then made some money, and then just was kind of well, maybe I should be back in school. I feel like if I don't do it, I probably won't ever go back. I should there's this I should probably finish a degree, even if it's art. I should probably be doing it. And I can still make music, I can still play shows. I can just do it on the off time of school. So that's sort of where what I came to sort of decide. But I decided that small school in Illinois was way too expensive. It was also not the school you want to be at for art. While I had a good teacher there, it was a small little school with no exposure, no. Yeah. So I was all right, well, I'll go to the University of Iowa because I have in-state tuition.
That helps.
It's a public school. They have a pretty decent history of art and artists and a big program there. There's good music that comes through. This is where I was able to open up for some of these artists and because a lot of people will stop there. It's a college town. Yeah. So I was all right, this will be cool. I'll do this. I'll do art and I'll also keep playing my music here and figure it out. So that's what I did. And then, I just kept doing that and that was fun. And I made more music and I went to once one like spring break, I went to Martha's Vineyard with my friend who had like an inn with this guy who had a studio there. Nice. And we like recorded my second album there.
That sounds really cool.
That was awesome. I tasted gin for the first time.
Okay.
I just remember that's like strangely.
Why does that come out?
Because it was just like cold in winter on Martha's Vineyard, which is like kind of a
it's not time to be there. Yeah, it's a summer spot.
Yeah, usually, and there's like not very many people there, and it was just like isolated and beautiful, and there was snow, and like the gin I just remember because it was like kind of has this like, I don't know, like pine kind of taste.
Yeah, it does.
It's like
tastes
very,
like pine needles.
Yeah,
to me,
same. And I was just like, it all like made sense or something to me.
Okay.
And it was really awesome.
So that first taste of gin was powerful.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we didn't like it was, you know, we made music, but it was just, I just remember that and that. And so
that sounds really cool.
We made music, and then I came back to school after spring break or whatever. And yeah, I started just getting more and more like into working with clay. Like I started getting drawn to the like ceramics and performance with clay. I was doing some like, I can show you some of that stuff too. It's kind of old and dated and a little cringy, but like also kind of interesting, where I did this piece where like I walked 40 miles. So I really walked, maybe, I don't know how many miles I actually walked, but I like made these giant ceramic balls and like walked them into the horizon of this cornfield and just like kept on walking these balls back and forth. You know, it was very like student art, but it was also kind of, in the time I did it as at sunset, so the light kind of like shifted and changed as I was doing it. And there was like these deer that ran across the frame at one point, which was kind of cool.
Oh, so you made a film?
Yeah, I made like a short video of it. I had other stuff too, where I like made more sculptural objects, or like I put a clock out in the woods that was also like a tent, and I camped out in it. And like I was just like experimenting and having a good like kind of moment of like freedom again, where like, because I was back in school, I didn't have bills again. I was able to just kind of be like free to experiment. And so.
Okay. And what were you, did you switch your major to something else?
So I was an art major then.
Got it.
So I finished there, I guess I did like 3 years there. So maybe it took me a year and a half at that first school, and then and then it was like a break of a semester, and then the summer, and then I did 3 years.
Okay.
And I finished with like a bachelor's in art.
Okay.
But I mostly was doing like ceramic stuff. And I was drawn to ceramics because it was this like 24/7 open door studio, and clay was like this material that didn't cost, like they had these giant recycled clay bins. So you could just like, I didn't have to spend money. Nice. I could just go and clay, if you mess up, you can just redo it again.
Oh, and, yeah, that's a great point.
So I was doing a lot in there, and
Okay. So that was through the end of college?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you graduate, and then you get spit out into the world.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
So I graduate, and I thought I was going to go to grad school for art to get an MFA, like right out of school. So I applied to like 10 graduate schools, and I got rejected from all of them.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not, you know?
Yeah.
Which honestly is the best. It was the right, I wouldn't have accepted me either.
I think that's also a theme too, is in my life I've seen is that, and I didn't come up with this little quote here, but someone came up with it, and it's proven to be true for me. But there were moments in my life where I wanted something so bad and I didn't get it, and I was like, God damn it, that's a fucking failure. And then later on, I'm like, thank God.
Good thing that didn't happen.
Yeah, sometimes some of these failures line us up for like a better success later. So I'm not like really spiritual, but I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, I just gotta trust that like
you're on a trajectory.
If I'm just true to myself and try to be an honest, good person, I think it'll hopefully work out. So
yeah. I mean, I was not, I don't think the art that I was making was particularly wonderful or great, but also I just wasn't ready. I needed to figure out what I was doing. Yeah. That was just like a default move. Yeah. But then I was like, all right, well, I don't quite know what to do. I gotta make some money, I guess, you know, but I'm still playing music a little bit. I have a community of friends here. Let's stay in Iowa City and figure this out. So I ended up like, the only like decent paying jobs were like there weren't. You couldn't like get a job. I remember especially like a fake portfolio of photos of sports and athletes trying to get a job at like the local newspaper as a sports photographer. I was like trying anything, and I was like, this is not working. So I ended up getting a job at a bank as a teller, because I was like, all right, insurance, health insurance, and like kind of decent pay.
Yeah.
So
benefits are a big deal.
I was a teller, and then I was like, this is not what I'll be doing for very long. But I started like this little space. The bank that I worked at had a building downtown that was maybe just a real estate investment. I'm not sure what its future was, but it was a vacant building. And in the basement, it was also vacant. I don't remember how or why, but I was able to see it one time, and I started talking to people and asked like, what's going on with this space? And they were like, it's, there's nothing going on with it. Yeah. So I was like, would you guys be interested?
Can I have it?
Yeah. Basically, I was like, I've got this idea. There's other people. There's an existing organization that's a 501(c) that is like this art organization called Public Space One, and they have a space and they're getting kicked out of it. I think that they could maybe occupy this space, but also like I have a vision for the basement to be like a gallery, performance space, music space, whatever. And so then that kind of got going. And
so you pitched this to the bank.
Yeah,
as a teller, you were like,
this is like a long time ago. I'm trying to remember if it was like, I don't think it was like that clear. I think it was kind of like maybe I heard somebody already talking about that space maybe being used, or but I definitely like was a part of like, hey, I'm gonna play here.
Yeah. Here's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, in particularly, I'm interested in like curating this gallery space to be showing what I was as a young artist, and like just having graduated. What I felt was lacking in that town was that like it was such a college town that like it was very insular, and like they had an art museum, but it wasn't like, they'd show these giant national artists or big time artists, and then they had a collection. There wasn't like anywhere to see like emerging art or people that were like maybe just like a life stage or phase ahead of me, like what I wanted to be in 5-10 years, like, or what I wanted to be doing. These people that like were making good artwork, but were like on their way to becoming something. So like more of an emerging art space. So, but that wasn't from the community. Like I wanted to like expose or like bring in or connect and network too. This is another like,
Yeah.
So we ended up like renovating this basement space into a gallery.
So
we hosted.
Did your pitch, was your pitch like the influential for them?
Yeah,
to like,
yeah,
you kind of won the pitch?
Yeah, and cool. I kind of like, so this Public Space One was like connected in different ways in the community. They had like a board and they had other things going on. So it's not like I was like the only driving force in all this, but it was like I was instigated that space, particularly the gallery space, and then was curating out of that. So we hosted like some really great art shows.
Did that become your job instead of being a teller?
While I was a teller. So this was like, I wasn't making any money doing this. So it was like a way to be satisfied creatively and connectively, and through like, so I started thinking maybe more like maybe my career path or what I'm doing is like maybe a little bit more as a facilitator or, maybe curator, maybe this kind of like organizer, like type role, or like maybe that's how I can like, what I'll do next, Music started to kind of calm down. I wasn't playing as many shows. I was at the bank still. I broke up with my girlfriend. I was very vulnerable. I was like, I need out of here, like, what am I doing with my life? So then I was like, all right, I'm going to move to New York. Like, that's just, I don't know what, but that's what I'm going to do. So
how old are you?
22 maybe, something like that.
Still really young.
Yeah, so it was like 2000, I don't know, what was that, 2007 or 8, 9, something like that. 2009, yeah.
Okay.
So then I was like, all right, I'm gonna move to New York. So I started just like watching job boards and different things, trying to find something that I could do. And so I ended up applying for an internship at MoMA PS1 in Long Island City. And I got it. I was like, oh my God, they like called me and I interviewed on the phone and I was like, I mean, this is an unpaid internship. Like I'm not getting, but PS1 is like,
that's
like the top, it's like one of the best contemporary art museums in the country, like in my opinion. It's like showing, some of the best, contemporary artists. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And this is like, it's funny too, because Public Space 1, PS1, from PS1 to PS1. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I don't know how exactly, but I'm gonna do it. So I sold my car. I was like, I won't need a car. So I had like a few $1,000s. And I was like, that'll at least kind of give me a cushion to like figure out what I'm doing once I get there. Yeah. And I like rented a room from somebody in Sunset Park.
Where's that at?
It's Brooklyn. It's like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I lived in Greenpoint for a little bit. Okay. I don't know where Sunset Park is.
I lived in Greenpoint the longest when I was in Brooklyn. Sunset Park is like south of like Prospect Park. Okay. Kind of.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so.
Do you remember by chance, you rented a room you had like roommates, apartment mates?
I had one roommate, or I forget, there's this thing called like Stephanie's List. It still exists. It's like this email list that goes out about like spaces, commercial rental, like as an artist, like art studios, live workspaces, but also like places to live and rooms to rent. Cool. And it's usually from like other artists. It's like a pretty good like network of.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So like so the person that I rented his room. He was going to be gone for 3 weeks on like an art residency or something, and he rented out his room. So I was like, all right, 3 weeks, and then I'll figure out what I was going to do.
That was like your first step.
Yeah, it was cheap. Yeah. It was like $400 or something for 3 weeks or something, So I was like, all right. So I did that, and I ended up getting a job at a coffee shop. Like then it was just like Craigslist job searching for just whatever, because I was like, I just need to get something that's making money. So I got a job at this coffee shop on Wall Street called Le Financier, which is like a New York chain, like dumb kind of coffee shop. Yeah. But it was good because they had food. I got free food.
Free food, nice.
Like got the experience of like interacting with Wall Street people.
Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
It was kind of fun.
Coffee shop on Wall Street.
Yeah, it was like, I don't remember. It was like everybody that worked at Wall Street was there. So did that. Like 4 days a week and 3 days a week was at PS1, where I was learning about the underside, the invisible side of the museum, of like how shows come together, like how the exhibition design, how things were made, like working with the chief preparator. It was me and like 3 or 4 other interns, which was cool too, because I got to meet, and I still am in contact and know these people that like were also in similar kind of like life stages and vision, points, inflections in their life. So it was kind of nice. That community was cool too, to like meet other people from, all over.
So moved to New York, coffee shop on Wall Street.
Yeah.
PS1, you're learning the inner workings of how an art museum works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What next?
It was an interesting time there too. Klaus Biesenbach, who was the director at the time, just took over, so that museum was like changing completely. When I say that, it was interesting because it was like this, there was like an energy there that was cool to like experience, and it was awesome. I was like just loving life. I was like, this is crazy that I'm doing this. This feels so good. Like, I loved like the events that they would host, and I had the opportunity to like work/experience. Like they had this warm-up series in the summer where an architect would do an installation in the courtyard, and they'd have like DJs come, and there'd be like these big like raves, and it was just like so fun.
Nice.
I was meeting people, and but so then the internship comes to a close. I'm like trying to figure out how to make money. Like what am I gonna do? I can't do this coffee shop. It's like $10 an hour.
Did you find like a more long-term place to live?
I think, so 3 weeks in Rit's room, and then he actually recommended to me, because I was like, hey, if you know of anybody that's like has a room available, let me know. And he's like, actually just down the street, a few blocks, my friend is gonna rent out her bedroom. I was like, all right. He's like, there's a bunch of other artists in there. It's like kind of like a warehouse-ish space, but they built it out where like each room has a art studio space, but then also a bedroom.
Cool.
And he's like, she's gonna keep her studio, but rent out her bedroom. So I was like, all right, that's cool.
Nice.
So I took that.
Do you know how much you were paying?
I paid $600 a month.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. It was funny though, because I learned, I'm not gonna name names, but whatever. I mean, it's no big deal. But I was like, she's smart, because I think they paid $1,000 a month. And so she got her I think I was paying $600 for the bedroom, which was like a fraction 1/4 of the studio.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
She was getting the best part of that
deal.
Yeah,
smart. But anyways, it was good. It was right next. It was like right next to the BQE, above a body shop that sprayed horrible paint.
Nice.
But
are you just a little bit buzzed all the time?
Yeah. So I was there, but it was cheap and it was fine. But what did I do next? And I was like, all right.
You wanted to stay in New York.
Yeah,
He's like,
I'm definitely staying in New York.
I can't work this coffee shop. I gotta do something else.
I'm making friends. I'm doing things. I'm like picking up some freelance art handling jobs.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this is how you can make some money. Like, this is pretty good. Like, I rode with a friend of mine to Miami. He's like, you don't have to drive at all. Just sit next to me in this giant, like, I don't know how long it was, like a 24-foot box truck. Like, we put one painting in it and drove it to this like lawyer's house in Miami and delivered it, hung it. Like, I definitely helped him carry in and out, and we hung it in the wall in his bedroom. But like, I think he paid me like $2,000 for like 3 days to just sit in the truck.
That's a nice little paycheck.
Yeah, so
that's like a paycheck that people would take now.
Yeah, so I was like, so my friend Jonas, he like kept on, who I knew from Iowa, he lived out there. He would tell me about different freelance gigs. Hey, bring your tool bag, like basically pretend to be a professional and come in, like help me hang this show, So we hung some art shows together.
Okay.
So just like slowly getting, and I was like good with my hand, like I knew how to like operate, like make things, and so it wasn't like I was faking it, but like really the practice of being an art handler is a little bit performance, where you like are putting on like white glove, like it's like this kind of like confidence that you have to like exude about like being the professional that's holding a really expensive ass piece of art. When you also have to be very careful and all the things. But so that was like a world of work and money to be made that I didn't know about until I moved to New York, was this like world of art handling. And so that was kind of cool. You could get paid, $40, $50 an hour. I was like, okay. So I started picking up those kinds of jobs, but it wasn't steady. The internship was ending. I was like, all right, I need to get like a real job. So I applied for different jobs. I got one because of my limited experience as an art handler and also working at PS1. I got a job at this art handling company where they build crates, and it was in Williamsburg. And I worked there, got a job, and we built crates for like the Museum of Modern Art, for the Guggenheim Museum, like the Morgan.
Like storage crates?
Yeah,
okay.
Or like a museum, like a lot of institutional stuff for like art shows that are traveling, that'll stop at like the Whitney and then go to LACMA and then go to here, all are like crated.
That's got to be like a pretty
it's
big industry then.
It's a niche, small industry that like there's a few companies that like make a lot of money. Yeah. So like they were doing well. I think there was like at least 30 employees or more at this little company.
It's not bad.
And funny enough, so the guy that hired me there, I share this beautiful space with. I've known I share this space with my friend Gabe, and he hired me. And that same week, he actually hired my partner, my wife.
Oh, nice.
So we've known. That's how
Is that how you met? Nice.
So we met.
Cool.
And that's like the next phase of my life, my next chapter.
Okay. So you're working for this art.
Building crates.
Yeah. Yep. Are you still making stuff of your own?
I am. So when I was like at PS1, I was like tinkering with different ideas. I worked. I still thought at that point that like I was going to be more of a like like maybe I would open up my own gallery, or I would be like a facilitator. I was more of like a person that wanted to organize. And this was also a little bit the time where like people were talking about like art as like an art practice as like a social practice. So this kind of like relational aesthetics was like a hot, like in art world, it was like this like little catchphrase, because there was this book that was written about it, where this kind of idea of like your life that you're living is your practice, and the kind of like, you know, setting up, it's like performance based, but also like real life, and kind of, I don't know. So I was kind of like leaning into that and thinking maybe I was gonna have a art practice that was more about relationships and yada yada. So I was reaching out, like I worked for this woman, Larissa Harris, at the Queens Museum, and helped her with organizing an exhibition, like doing like fabrication and also some like admin research stuff. So I was kind of like, okay, I can use that and build on that, and I'll slowly build like more and more connections, doing like assisting like curators and people that I'll meet in New York while holding down this full-time job. Like I worked for this guy, Neville Wakefield, who curated like the Greater New York show at PS1, and then I met him through that, and then I helped him like archive some of his curatorial projects, yada yada. So I was like trying to build those relationships, and I was working building crates like in a wood shop like this during the day.
Okay. And then you met your current wife.
Yes.
Okay.
And
what was your first meeting like with her?
You know, we were friends. We were like, she is a funny person, like humorous. She's like funny and like nice, and everybody likes her. And you know, so it was like just meeting a friend. I think she had a boyfriend at the time. I kind of had a girlfriend.
Okay, your girlfriend.
I was kind of just playing, you know.
Okay.
I was just single.
You're just enjoying New York.
Yeah. Which that's a funny story. That's some funny stuff too. This girl from the Wall Street coffee shop, I don't know if you want this stuff.
Well, we can cut it out if we don't want it.
She was cool. She was Polish. She lived in Greenpoint. She was crazy, or she was nice. We like,
she was crazy.
Yeah.
She was insane.
Well, what was insane was that we were kind of we weren't dating. We were just like friends and like hanging out. And one day I got a phone call on my phone that was like, I went to voicemail, I didn't answer it, and I listened to it later, and it was like, I will fuck you. I was like, what is this? What is going on?
Oh,
like,
she was Polish, yeah.
Yeah, and it was her Polish husband.
Oh, yikes.
With whom she had a Polish kid with.
Oh my God.
So I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to kill me.
That's terrifying.
Anyways, you can probably cut that
out. A little sidebar.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so I was kind of sort of dating her, not really. And then I found out about that and I wasn't. But we were just friends and it was cool. Like the community there it was a great place to work, again, in terms of like stability, decent pay, great boss, like great coworkers. Like the work became pretty monotonous and boring because it was almost factory-like, like in the process of building. Even though we were dealing with cool artifacts and paintings and things, and occasionally you'd see them, most of the time you were just like working off a cut list and cutting to dimensions and building boxes, you know.
Yeah.
But most of the people that worked there were artists and interesting people doing interesting things. So you kind of like felt like you were, you know, in the mix of New York, like energy and things going on. And there would be drinks after work and openings and go do this and that. So it was like a nice place to be.
Cool. How long did you work there? Like what year of your life are we at?
It's like mid 2010. And then I stayed there all the way until like 2015. So I was there for almost like 4.5 years.
So you're working for this art moving company.
Yeah.
You're doing your kind of like your networking, meeting people on the side in the art world.
Yeah.
You're still thinking, I'm going to be like a facilitator of art, not a creator of art myself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm still making music too and like playing, but less like I really want to make it, more like this is just something I like, love making music and recording it in my bedroom. Okay. You know.
So coming to the end of that period of time.
Yeah.
Like what was the catalyst for leaving that job? Jumping to the next thing.
So maybe just backing up a little bit from leaving that place, because there was a reason to stay at that place as long as I did, was that, so my partner and I, we were friends for like 3 months, and then we started dating, and like maybe 3 months into being friends, and then we found out she/we/she was pregnant.
Oh boy.
So we were like, okay, like, what are you gonna do? Like, basically, not like, but like, I'm not, what do you want to do? Like, I'm into,
Yeah, that's a tough conversation that quick.
Yeah, and like also both of us she was in graduate school at Pratt at the same time working a full-time job. So she was in this moment of like just beginning to like, figure out what she's gonna do exactly, and I was starting to in the same kind of place. But we were just such a good. It just felt like such a like natural like decision, and this is just where we were and who we were and who we are. We were just like, yeah, okay, let's do this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna figure this out, Mm-hmm. So we welcomed our first daughter in 2011. So I was like a year into working at that art handling company. She was in school. She took a year off from school to have her, our daughter, and then stay home with her. And around that time, Gabe, who I share this space with now, decided to leave the job, and he went on and did whatever he did. But he was like a assistant manager or whatever, so they offered me that position, which was like a pretty decent pay increase and like blah, 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 whatever.
Medical benefits?
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I got to hold, this is what I'm doing now, know? So, and it wasn't like a horrible place, like I said, to be in terms of work. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I'll do this and we'll figure it out. So I took that, we were doing that. Ella came into the world, and we were just kind of just holding steady, like figuring out how to be a parent, how to like transition identities, like, letting go of some, not like letting go, it sounds dramatic, but just like a lot of things kind of fall to the side when you're like, all right, this is all I got time for. And this is what I was talking about earlier. It was like, I got time for work because I need to be at work and make money, and I also have time to like, love this little baby and be with my wife.
And make sure priorities pretty sharp.
Yeah, so it's like two things.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what it was for the first couple of years, And like, I still occasionally would be able to go see an opening or do a little something, but for the most part, it was like, kind of had to stop, like.
Just working baby, basically.
Yeah, so it's really where I was at from like 2011 to 2013, 14, things start to kind of open up a little bit when they're like 2 and 3 years and then we welcomed Iona, our second baby.
Okay.
Like, we don't want her to be an only child. So we moved up to Greenpoint into a little nicer apartment, closer to work. Like I could bike to work. Nice. We also had moved up there and made a lot of really great friends, started to feel like friends that were also parents. Like we started feeling like we belonged, like found community as like in our new identity as like a family, and really loved like that. Those were some of the like really good years. Like I feel like, these are still good years, but like just like I think about that time, even though I wasn't like pursuing like my own creative vision or that kind of whatever, I was like, that was awesome. Like it was really good. So we were doing that. Iona was born in our apartment.
Wow.
On North Henry, intentionally.
Okay.
There's a long story there. I'm not going to give my wife's birth story to everyone, but cool. It was crazy. And awesome. And then we kind of did more of the same for the next couple of years, where I was still working at Box Art. This is an art handling company. And like, it's like I said, it's a good place. They give you little raises. That's the thing about art worlds, I'm not going to talk about art handling for too long, but like those companies are like weird because they get artists that want to come and work there for the reasons that I did, because it's like pay and like good community. And then you get little raises. And then you're kind of like,
it's tough to leave.
Yeah. So I was like at this point where it's like, I'm making decent-ish, more money than I've ever made. Not a lot of money. I mean, whatever. But like enough that I was barely paying our bills, you know. But also during this time, taking on like side jobs, like fabrication stuff, like getting better. My skills are getting better because I'm using tools all the time. So I'm like doing little furniture pieces or I was selling this little credenza that I used to make that's like just a mid-century rip-off, whatever, you know, on Etsy, you know, like very like, let's make a little extra money.
So that was you were doing that stuff for money?
Yeah, and that was like after work in the shop that I worked at, you know, like tuck it away and then go back to work, and on my break go work on this. And so it's kind of like starting to hustle to make more money, but also to like kind of, after about 4 or 5 years, I was like, all right, I need to do something else. Like, so I started, doing like little fabrication job for people. My sister at the time moved to New York like a year, maybe or two after Iona was born. I don't remember what year, 2014 or 15 or something. And she got a job at this skincare brand called Aesop, which is like a high-end, nice skincare brand, as like a visual merchandiser. And she, you know, introduced me to their design teams. And this is just when they were launching in the US. They were like an independent company. They're now like owned by like L'Oreal or something. They're like gigantic, $1 billion.
It's AESOP, right?
Yeah. Okay. And I always thought it was like Aesop, Aesop, I don't know.
I know there's like the Aesop's Fables book.
Right, I know.
I don't actually know how to pronounce that. I've always called it Aesop.
Yeah.
Could be.
But they've they were building out their stores, whatever, and they needed fabricators, and they were at the very beginning of like making connections with like, you know, other, you know, people to make their stores and pop-ups and whatnot. So she was able to introduce me, and I like said yes to a couple of bids that like I didn't quite know. Like this is when I had a full-time job, and I was like, how am I going to also? So I ended up like taking vacation days to like do work for them, like in terms of the build outs and installs. And I would be hiring like friends of mine, like Gabe and my other friend Jeff. I would hire them to like build elements of it, and I'd like found a CNC guy over in Bushwick to do so I was like starting to like basically project managing, like while also working full time. And then contracting out parts and, you know, with vendors, and then taking vacation to actually go there and install. So I was like starting to get a little bit over my head, but like still comfortable. But it really taught me a lot about project management and how to like coordinate and building relationships, and, you know, this sort of world of like millwork and fabrication that like maybe could turn. And I started thinking in my head, oh, maybe this could start to turn into my job, you know, like whether it be for a company or for myself. So I need to continue to build this portfolio of experience while also holding down a job that is actually paying me consistently. But that meant that I was working like a lot, you know, and it was kind of starting to like, I knew that had to be temporary. So I got an opportunity through a friend of mine who worked for a company in Red Hook called Uhuru. And they, at the time, were kind of like at their top of I felt like they were like kind of this like cool company that was making interesting furniture, like collectible design furniture, but then also did like big contract build outs. And like they did like, I think their big break was like doing Vice Media's office. Okay. So they like designed and built the entire office, and that like really propelled them. So they started getting these bigger contract jobs with like Shake Shack and Ace Hotel. They started doing a bunch of their stuff. So my friend was hired there to be like head of project management for them, and he was like, hey, you should come work here. This company is like starting to grow. Like it's up your alley. It's like where you want to be. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I took a job there for less pay. So I took like a pay decrease, knowing though that this is like way better. This is where I want to go, you know. Yeah. In terms of like furniture and building and design, and like started being more interested in that than like interning for, you know, a curator that's not going to pay me anything, you know, like I couldn't do that anymore. Like I needed to like build a career, you know? Yeah.
So that had the difference of like the art company was like, there was like no creativity. It was like follow your cut list. And then this was a step in a creative direction.
Step in a creative direction, yet still building on some of the skills that I have. And like, so I got a job there as like senior woodworker. So I was like on their floor building their furniture pieces. So they'd give you like a design sheet, like the art handling company, but it was you're working with like nice material, solid wood and doing like furniture.
Yeah.
So then you'd build your piece, and it was awesome. Like that time when I worked there was like, I felt like I was able, going to work felt like I'm so lucky. Like this is so awesome.
That's
like,
great.
You know what I mean? Like this is so cool. Like I can't believe I get to just like it was such a chill, relaxed place. It was just like awesome. It was on the river, like Red Hook, beautiful.
Nice.
So yeah, I worked there doing that for like a year as a like just straight up woodworker in their shop. And then there was a position that opened as like a project manager for like working on the other side of the wall, which was like their office spaces at this company. And so I got, my friend was the person in hiring, and he was like, all right, yeah, I think you'd be great at this, And I was still doing the ESOP stuff in fabrication while working at Uhuru too, building furniture. So I was still doing some of that too.
Yeah.
And this project management position was as a raise, and I was like, okay, I'll do this. And so I did that. And through that, like we built like a bunch of Shinola. Do you know Shinola? The watch company.
Yeah.
We did a bunch of their stores. We did like some office spaces. I managed like the build outs of. So I got more experience doing that kind of work. And then what happened? This was like 2016. I was like, so this company started to like, I don't know. I'm not gonna. They grew so big, so big. So they went from like a company of like 10 employees to like 50 employees in like 1 year.
Okay.
And I think that they grew too big potentially, and they got a showroom space in Tribeca with like crazy rent and like They had investors, so they also had this obligation to like do this, and so I think that they grew in a kind of like every direction way instead of like maybe a focused way, whatever. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going on, but they started having to like lay people off and shrink and figure out like what their industry really is, because they were kind of doing a little everything. So the direction they went in was like contract furniture, like office space furniture. So they shrunk down their like high-end like collectible furniture. So the work that they're doing became less interesting to me. One, I also didn't feel like the same stability in terms of work and environment. Started to feel different because of layoff. It's kind of like, what's going on here? Yep. So I was like, maybe it's time for me to figure out what my next step is.
Okay.
So I was like, I don't know. And I was like, and then I started thinking like, New York is like an amazing place to be as a single person. It's a very difficult place to be with 2 kids. We were living in like a 1-bedroom apartment that both of our kids had the bedroom, and then we had a Murphy bed in the living room.
Wow.
So it's like 550 square foot apartment.
That's pretty small.
4th floor walk up. Like we were just like, no outdoor space. Like, what are we doing? Like, what's our long-term game plan here?
Yep.
It's probably not New York. I don't know that this is our long-term. So we just started, we want to be in a city. We want to be around like opportunities and these kind of like feeling of like, things can happen, but yet have space. But how do we do that? Like, so I started looking for jobs, applying for jobs. Nothing's really coming. I'm looking at like project management jobs for like big brands and companies that like, like Skechers shoes or whatever, like they build stores. Like I know how to build stores. So nothing's coming through. I'm like trying to network my way in and whatever.
And you're looking for stuff that's not in New York.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's like LA. We're like looking at LA.
Okay.
We're looking at Chicago. And nothing's really coming through. So then I was like, what if I go back to school? What if I went to grad school?
That's a classic one. When you're like, I got to change something.
I don't know
go back
what I'm going to do. Yes, exactly.
That's a classic, like, okay, I'm going to get another degree.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the only degree I can get is an MF, most likely. I mean, there's other things I could maybe have done, but I was like, what if I do an MFA in art like I wanted to do straight out of school when I didn't get in anywhere? But now I've got a lot of connections. I have a lot of good recommenders. I've got some interesting work that's maybe more social practice based, but also I did this, I was doing like slip casting ceramics through Uhuru. They offered this like professional development. Like this was when they were like very generous with everything. Before the
at the beginning when they were spending stuff like crazy.
They had like professional development. So I took classes at like SVA in New York and like on like slip casting. So I had this portfolio of like cast ceramics that I made in like 3 months. I was like, I'll use that.
Yeah.
You know, so I applied to grad school on these like ceramics I made in this class. And I only applied to schools that were in locations where we wanted to live, Chicago or LA, and to schools that were fully funded. So I applied to like Northwestern in Chicago, and I applied to like UC Irvine, and I applied to UC Riverside and UCLA. And I got waitlisted at UC Irvine and waitlisted at Northwestern. And so I waited, and then I got into UC Irvine. And I was like, okay, it's fully funded, so no debt. They give you like money to TA and teach, so you actually, it's like a part-time job. Like subsidized rent. Like my kids could go to after school for free. Like it was like very like, okay, we can at least land, again, like how can we land there softly and then figure it out. My wife will get a job, like, and she did. She ended up like working nearby, and
that sounds like a pretty good deal.
It was awesome. Yeah. So it was like 3 years of me just like being able to like, we were talking about before, like get into these like these places of like creativity and like these kind of like, and I was so hungry for it, having like been so business minded and like I got to make money, got to support my family, got to you know, so strict like in terms of like how I occupied my time, that this was like a release again. It's like open-ended, like it's not necessarily about what you do, it's like more about how you, like what, you know, how you get there kind of feeling. So it was cool. It was awesome. Irvine was, it was very weird to move to Irvine from New York, but it was great.
Yeah. So you moved there. You're basically just, is your objective every day just to like get up and basically just kind of create, explore? Yeah, I mean, it was I overlooked that this sounds stupid, but like that I was going to be a student again. You know, like I actually did have to go to classes, and I did have like to write some, like the first year in grad school, there's more like traditional classes that you're taking where you're like, you have to do the reading and then, you know, write about it or whatever. I was kind of like forgot how to do that stuff, but it was fine. It was good to like be challenged like that and be exposed to some stuff that I would probably never had thought about or been exposed to. But then, the program there is like interdisciplinary. Like you don't have to do anything if you don't want to do anything. Like you can do everything. Like it's really self-directed kind of like practice. You can do you know, anything. So I was very much about less classes, more studio time, and I made artwork there that I'm, you know, is informing what I'm doing now and the way that I'm thinking about putting together an exhibition or an artwork there, and all the conversations we had about work, like it's definitely given me a nice like kind of framework or like foundation to then move into this more collectible furniture that I'm making and be able to think about it and talk about it and still lean into some of those communities too and network. Like moving from Irvine so we moved to South Pasadena from Irvine after school. And this was like everybody's got a mask on, 2020. Wow.
So I graduated in 2020 spring. So I was like job hunting in like February and March of 2020, and like we thought we were moving to Chicago. I had like done like 4 interviews with the Art Institute of Chicago. And pretty much felt like I had the job. They called my recommenders, and so after I was graduating, I was going to get a job there, like managing their sculpture shop, and then also like teaching one class a semester, which was pretty ideal. I thought maybe teaching would be a place where I could like build on my own art practice and yet still like get paid. And I think a lot of MFA students think that right away and then figure out, wait, is teaching actually like what I want to do? And, but yeah, so then they froze all hiring because it was like,
because of the pandemic.
Because like, people like couldn't get toilet paper and, you know.
Yeah.
Like you know, you didn't know what was going to happening. So, then we just kind of like hunkered down, and like Irvine let us stay in our apartment longer than.
That's nice of them.
We, so we continued to pay cheap rent there, and my wife was working at an art museum in Laguna Art Museum, and they went remote, and we're still employing her.
Great.
So we were like, okay, I guess we'll stay here, you know. And then we moved up to LA because she was still able to keep her job.
Oh yeah.
And was like working remotely. And then I got like a job for a hot minute at an art handling company, because I was like, that's what my resume is a lot of. So at least it's something. Yeah. And I was like, this is not it. After 3 months, I was like, this is a cinder block warehouse in Compton, like where everybody's like, I can't do this. So I then got a job at this company called Dusk. These guys that make furniture. It's like a very much cooler, scrappier, in tune with like what's hot, like cool company that fabricates for like version of Uhuru, but like very much more like small.
Okay.
Yeah. So they make furniture for a bunch of designers and architects, and they were in like East LA at the time, and they moved to Vernon, and I kind of helped. So I started on as like, do you know the company Rivian? You know, the trucks? They were doing this gigantic build out for them. So they were just like hiring people. They just needed help. They were doing this giant showroom for them in Venice.
I passed that. Is it on Venice Boulevard?
Yeah.
That looks like a really nice spot.
It's beautiful.
I've never been inside, but I drive past and I'm like, that looks really incredible.
Yeah. So it was like hiring any and everybody to come help and do this. I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And then it was kind of, hey, we need help transitioning from this move. Like, we're moving to this much bigger building, and we're kind of like becoming a little bit more of a real company with like W-2s, and like how operationally can you help us? So I helped them like basically get a little bit, you know, more organized from a operational standpoint. And then once that was kind of in place, it was like, all right, now what? Like, you know, because I didn't really want to jump back into like building and making on the floor for them, just like hourly, whatever. Yeah. I kind of liked this operational stuff, and so I was kind of like, I don't know. I started kind of just opening my ears up for work, and what do I do next? And a friend of mine was like, hey, I'm designing this store in Atwater Village. Do you still like do you have a shop? Like, and I didn't. And I was like, maybe, you know, like, let me see it, send the drawings. I'd love to like take a look at this bid or whatever. Yeah. And it was like this really cool store design, full build out, like good budget. And I was like, how does this happen? This could be a good reason to like lead the next thing, you know? Yeah. So my friend Gabe in this shop, his shopmate, we had just been in touch and we were always talking, and he had called me just like coincidentally, like at the same time, and was like, hey, my shopmate that I share this space with is moving out. Are you at all interested in sharing shop space? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you up to? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, perfect maybe. Yeah. So I was like, actually, yeah. And I have this big job. What are you doing? You want to do it with me? And he was like, all right, yeah, let's do it. So I signed a 4-year lease, and then we built out that store. It's called Dreams, which sadly does not exist anymore. Oh, dang. It was like a very short run.
What kind of store was it?
Beautiful space. It was like all sorts of stuff. It was like clothes and like lotion. It was like a boutique, like very hip, cool little store.
But they didn't last very long.
80 designed. Yeah, they didn't last long. But that was like a good like 2-3 month project. And then in the time between that and then, I was just like, all right, I need to like reach out, throw my net out there, let anyone and everyone know that I'm doing this, like generate business, you know. So I was just like emailing and talking and getting, so then other things just started popping up after, so slotting those things in, and that's what I'm still doing.
Was that the beginning of Rest Fabrication then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was that, yeah. And then
about what year was that?
That was like 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're picking up these, would you call them contracting jobs or fabrication jobs? Fabrication jobs.
It was like, that job was like a millwork job. That was like a commercial millwork. So it was like a store. And it was for my friend Adi, who runs her business is called Sing Sing, this agency studio. They do all sorts of stuff, like video and like stuff, like commercial work, but then she also like designs stores and but she had that job, and then she was like, I got more work, after that. So like she became somebody that I did multiple projects with.
Cool.
And then through working with her, I could point to that work and say, hey, look, I'm doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so that became like a more recent portfolio, where my portfolio of like introducing myself to designers and architects was the ESOP stuff, and the other stuff I did in New York. So it felt a little bit more like, okay, that definitely gets you in the door in the conversation, but it was like also like 5 years ago, So, yeah. And then what I really wanted to do, what I'm still wanting to do more of, is work with galleries, because it's such good work in terms of, from my standpoint, because it's like quick turnaround, which means quick pay, and it's like building pedestals, like out the door fast, like while they're, and generally they have a budget, and there's not like this negotiation of, there's no emotion like involved with the work. It's just very like, build this.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, pay me. Perfect. Let's do it.
So when does that was 2021. That was kind of like the start of Rest Fabrication. Yeah. When does Rest Energy start to become a thing?
So, I would say, I guess last year in June is when officially, 2023 June is when I launched my first collection, Wet Wool.
Wet Wool, yeah.
But the start and the ideas for that started probably like a year prior to that. So like in the summer to fall of 2022.
Okay.
I started thinking like, okay, this is good. I'm making money. I have like a steady thing going here that I can maybe grow a little bit, but I don't want to grow it so much, because I don't want to be a company that has employees and it's like, I hire like freelance people to help me when I need it. Like, and I like that. I like the flexibility of being like, I'm not going in today because my daughter's got this, and I don't have to call and ask somebody. I don't have to, I can make my own schedule. And I don't want to, even as a boss or owning a company and having employees, you still have to be responsible too. And I was like, I don't really want to go like that. But what I do want, maybe, or what could happen, is I start building like a wing of this that is, leaning on some of the stuff I was doing in grad school with the visual art stuff, and like a natural kind of next progression or step would be to take that sort of framework or concept, like the ways that I was thinking, and apply it to furniture. And, I'm dealing and working with all these other designers and architects that like are in this world. So I know how to make things. Like this is already something I'm participating in, but as a fabricator, I want to participate as the designer. I want to be like the one making it with my name on it. Yeah. So I was like, all right, what do I do? So I started thinking about ideas, and just like while also working on work, like thinking about things, like buying materials, testing things, doing little things like for 30 minutes, and then working. And then finally kind of committing or coming to a conceptual idea of what this collection would be, and then really kind of slotting it in like another job on my job board of like, okay, I know 2 months from now, from this week, I'll be working on the collection, like making it. And then learning all about the runway that leads up to, I really wanted to release it in a way that felt like considered and like really like done as best as I could, not just like iPhone photos, put it on the Instagram. Like, I wanted it to like really have an impact. So I like started networking and looking things online, like who, like designers that I like, who's photographing their work, like designers that I like, how do they get press? Like, so oh, they have this press agency. I'll reach out to them and say, hey, introduce myself, and I'm curious about like this industry. How does this work? Just like asking like questions about how things work, and then them being like, I had coffee with this very generous like PR person who runs an awesome agency that like I could not afford, but she was like, yeah, let's have coffee. I'll talk to you about like give you some pointers. So she like talked about what kind of photographs I might want to think about getting, like who to work with. Here's an agency that you might want to work with that like seems more in tune with like where you're at right now. So she pointed me to this PR agency that I connected with and worked with and still am working with that like was a perfect fit because they're more like empowering and you're like kind of like self-directing the PR around the work. And it's weird that I feel like I talk about PR a lot when I talk about my furniture because it's very much about like zooming out and thinking about how it goes into the world as much as it is about the work. Like there's two different moments of like one moment of like the creativity, the concept, the actual making, and then there's an equal or larger moment of like how do I present this.
That's a great point.
So I think that's the first time I've thought like that for my own like work. But so 2022 I was doing the ideas, thinking, what am I going to make? What am I going to do? Tinkering around. And then in like December, January of 2023, I like made stuff, started making things, and then got it photographed and, started working with the PR agency, and they're like helping me write like bio and copy around the work, like a concept statement about it, and really kind of like help me reflect on it more and help me think about, like where does this fit in the conversation of design? Like what magazines, like how do you fit into this? Like who you want to be with all this? Yeah. How do you position yourself in the world with this work? And then we did that, and then
here you are.
So here I am.
So how has it been going? We're currently it's January 2024. So if you started making things December of 22, you said. So it's been a little over a year. How's that last year been?
I mean, great in a sense because I did it. It's like kind of like one of these things where it's like. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna do that someday, or like, and even if it wasn't like, it was successful in the sense that like, it's something to build on and it's something to like point to and then work from and learn from.
You got something, you shipped something.
Yeah, exactly. And I sold a few things, and I like had opportunities. Like I got invited. I was in this group show in Paris, which was amazing. Cool. And I got to talk to Natalie Portman. She sat in my chair, cool. Whatever. That's stupid. You can cut that. Okay. But it was just like, it was affirming. I felt affirmed, and I felt like accepted, and I felt like whether or not like, I lost money in this whole thing. Like I've spent more money in materials, but you also can't monetize like opportunity. Like I'm having this conversation, I'm doing this because of that. And this is, maybe I'll be saying, I'm doing this because of that, So like having these moments where I'm like building and gradually evolving, like I started the snowball, So hopefully it's getting bigger. Yeah. So even if like I've only sold a few things and I've spent, X and I'm a couple $2,000 negative or whatever, it's like I'm not, because it's started a thing that will then, in 5-10 years, I hope I can look back and be like, this is what I'm doing full time. This is all I'm doing is Rest Energy. This is, or maybe Rest Fabrication exists, but I've got somebody else that's like managing it.
Yeah. I think that point, the point of like net negative, is an important one. I think it's like, it's tough to, often when you start things, you're net negative. Yeah. I mean, I'm funding these episodes out of pocket. Right. I'm net negative on them.
Yeah.
But it's something that I'm passionate about, and it's like, it's like also you regret what you don't try. You never regret what you try. Yeah. You can make more money. But you gotta like try the thing, and you gotta, as they say, you gotta ship it. You gotta get it out into the world. Yeah. And you did that. You did your thing. You got it out. You're like sick. It's fucking out, even though I had $5,000 negative.
Right. And
out.
And like you, and I think, and like me, I was as wise about every move that I made. I put like my whole self into every single decision. Like it wasn't like just willy, like whatever, you know. It was like very much like conscious of like those kind of like investments in myself in this in a way that was like smart and not just backed by like an investor or like some big money lump sum, where like I think this natural kind of like growth too is like really important.
Yeah.
Because you slowly build, and I think a slow build is like a long-term
sustainable.
build.
Yeah, you got to think long-term, which is hard. I'm super impatient. That's hard for me, but you really do got to think.
Yeah.
As I've grown older, I think I've grudgingly accepted it's a long-term game.
Yeah.
You got to do stuff that is like authentic and true to you, and because you got to be able to stand out and also be able to like sustain it long enough for it to work.
Yeah.
Because stuff doesn't often work.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was just talking to Caitlin, my partner. She's like, well, what if you did have some kind of like large, like loan or like something that could help you just focus on your furniture? Like, I'm like, yeah, but the work that I'm doing as a fabricator is keeping my hands busy. It's keeping my mind, like it allows for this like natural progression of ideas where I feel like if all I was doing was just like working on this design work, I would be more prolific. I potentially could make really cool stuff, but it wouldn't be the same kind of like, I don't know.
Maybe there's something to be said for like, people say if you're going to create things, whatever, if you're a comedian, you have to go out and like do other stuff.
Yeah.
You can't just tour and like not leave your tour bus because you're not going to,
you won't be inspired. There's no,
You have to go do other things.
Yeah.
And then that's, ideas will collide because you're like, wait a minute. Oh, what if I did that? You'll stumble across something or see a shape or a color or whatever, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
and something will click.
Yeah,
you got other stuff. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at. And now I'm like, I mean, with the design world, there's a kind of calendar, schedule in terms of like New York Design Week or different opportunities that you want to then like have your work finished in enough time that you have photography and lead up to it. So you kind of fall into a rhythm on that, like yearly kind of calendar. I'm learning, and I'm sort of adhering to that a little bit, but we'll see. So like right now I'm in like a year ago, I was just like making new work for this new collection that I released in the spring. So I'm kind of at that point again for my second collection where I've been mulling over ideas and materials, and kind of like I'm at this point where I actually just have to make something that then inspires my second collection. Then maybe I'm photographing it in March, and then it's maybe in the world in May or June.
Cool. So that's the next step. That's the near future.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like almost like on a year. I don't know if I'll keep doing that every year, but like where it's like end of fall, early winter, making the new work and then releasing in the spring.
Cool. Do you have any thoughts about long-term future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of touching on it before, where it's like I can envision this work being sought after, being more exposed and collected, and having opportunities to show. I'd love to be showing with a gallery or something that like presents an exhibition opportunity, so that I'm working towards that rather than like being so DIY where I'm having to be the press. I'm like the instigator behind every single facet of the work. Yep. I'd like to be at a point where like somebody else is handling sales, like a gallery, or handling PR, and I'm really just working off of a calendar of an exhibition due date. And with that, there's sales, and that supports myself and my family. And then either this fabrication work either comes to an end, or it's like I was saying, maybe managed by somebody else that I would work with. Okay. So
cool.
That's like I think an attainable like 5-year goal is to be like sustaining, like have work that is furniture design artwork that is like represented and sold, that is sustaining me, and then also potentially having fabrication work done by somebody else, but I'm still involved.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. How do you feel about life right now? Like, you feel pretty good? You feel like...
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, I don't know. I don't really, everyone in my family is healthy. Like we are, I mean, it's like cliche, but like
it's important.
We're healthy and we're all, you know, I think about my partner and like what her next steps are, because she's gone, we have a 2.5-year-old. So she's kind of gone back to like, I mean, I have 2, but not nearly as much as she has, into this like world of like baby world. Like what's my purpose? Like, who am I? Like, you know, so she's at this point where she's going to be like figuring out, and that influences me and maybe is involved with me. Maybe she's working with me on some of this stuff. She's an artist, she's a maker. So there's still a lot of unknowns, I feel like, in our family life about like what we're, you know, what's next sort of feeling. But for the most part, life is steady, life is good. Like my kids are doing well in school. I have a 7th grader and a 4th grader.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
My 7th grader is trying out for Footloose, the musical.
Nice.
This week.
Very cool.
She loves musicals.
Cool, man. Well, I feel like that was a pretty fantastic story.
That's a deep dive.
It was a deep dive. Anything we missed? Anything like that you feel like was important that we somehow didn't catch?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think I have some things I think we can talk about as we will like take a look at your wet wool collection.
Yeah.
I think we'll talk about, I want to talk about music as an inspiration, and I also want to talk about this contradiction that I see a lot of places, but we'll talk about that as we're like looking at some stuff.
Okay, cool.
Otherwise, that's it.
All right.
Thanks for talking and being honest and vulnerable and taking a chance.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's like you just emailed me out of the blue. It's kind of a weird. Yeah, I'm all about like and this is maybe not anything you want, but I'm also very much a person that just emails people and like and not like.
You gotta try.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm also not just asking for something, but even sometimes just saying like I saw your work, I loved it.
Yeah.
That's
just
it.
Say something.
You know, like, and being connected and being like, or even from a business standpoint, like reaching out to, you know, an architect or designer I love and just being like, hey, I'd love to be your 4th bid on your project, like whatever, you know, like I love your work. I love, you know, and just being upfront and honest, I think is a way of like, like reaching out for things that you want. Like, and if you don't get it, it's all good.
You didn't lose anything. Yeah. I've said this before, but I call it the audacity to reach out.
Yeah.
Just like give it a shot. You have nothing to lose except the time you spend to write that little message. But
and if you're not ready, you won't get it. Like it's like I wasn't ready for it. You know, it's like, or you will, and then you'll realize why you weren't ready for it.
Yeah, I've had that experience a couple times too. I've been like, a lot of those things that I didn't get, I was like, oh yeah, I would have fucked that up if I got that when I wanted it. It would have not worked.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well,
all right.
That's it.
Cool.